Many people struggle with dialing an espresso grind size, not because it's complicated, but because they're chasing numbers instead of understanding the process. Hey, espresso lovers, Mark here from Whole Latte Love. You know, we see thousands of machines, grinders, and coffees every year across our support team. The techniques and tips I'm sharing today aren't theory. They've consistently worked to help hundreds make better espresso. At Whole Latte Love, we don't teach espresso as a recipe, we teach it as a system. The WLL Espresso Framework, a system for diagnosing and mastering espresso in the real world. The framework represents an evolution in how we approach troubleshooting. Pillars of the framework are beans, resistance, energy, uniformity, and intent. The focus today, it's going to be grind size and dose weight, which falls under the resistance pillar, but we'll look at uniformity with helpful tools and basic pre-infusion techniques, get into energy in regards to brew temps, hit the bean pillar for bean selection and pre-infusion. Within intent, we'll look at how to make some basic flavor changes using dose and grind size. Now, in this video, we're using a standard commercial style non-pressurized basket, the kind with lots of holes where you can control the fundamentals. If your basket has a single hole on the bottom, that's a pressurized basket. It creates the resistance for you, so you lose control of that and some of the other pillars in the framework. With a lack of control, pressurized baskets generally produce lower quality espresso. Now, before we get into it, I want you to know about our free one-on-one video calls, a unique and exclusive service to help you out. If you're still shopping, CoffeeCast, that's going to connect you with our experts to compare products and see live demos so you can choose the right fit. Our Barista Assist has you after a purchase, helping you set up any new machine or grinder as needed. So every espresso shot is a balance between pump pressure and puck resistance. Grind size, dose, distribution, basket geometry work together for one purpose: modifying resistance to control the flow rate of brew water through the coffee puck. Now, the common advice is a 1-to-2 extraction ratio in 20 to 30 seconds, but I don't want you to think of that as a recipe. It's a starting point, not the end goal. It's going to get you into a diagnostic window. Now, once in the window, you can refine taste with intent, adjusting dose, grind, uniformity, and more based on flavor and not time. A sour and thin shot is usually under-extracted. If it's bitter and hollow, it's over-extracted or maybe channeling. If sharp and intense, hey, it could be a high-acid coffee brewed correctly. Now, we'll get into all that later and learn how to modify espresso taste and mouthfeel. To start, you want to get in that window using that 1-to-2 extraction pulled in 20 to 30 seconds. Now, if unfamiliar, the 1-to-2 thing is a brew ratio comparing the weight of ground coffee in your portafilter to the weight of espresso in your cup. So if you start with 15 grams of ground coffee in your portafilter, you're going to run the extraction until there's 30 grams of espresso in your cup. When that happens in 20 to 30 seconds, shazam, and congratulations, you're in that diagnostic window. Now, to make the math easy, I used 15 grams in the example, but how much ground coffee should you use? Well, most prosumer level machines come with single and double shot filter baskets. In modern espresso, doubles are more common, and with a higher coffee dose have more room for modification, so you should start there. Double basket capacities typically range from maybe 14 to 18 grams depending on manufacturer, but can run as high as 22 grams. But do check your capacity with the beans you'll be using, and you're gonna want to do that by grinding a little bit finer than table salt, then slightly overfill the basket, wipe it level with a basket rim, weigh the coffee, and that's your capacity. Now, if you switch coffees, you may want to recheck capacity, as light roasts are denser and dark roasts are less dense. When you find the capacity, you're going to dose about a gram under, and I'll tell you all about why you want to do that coming up. Based on our support team's interactions with thousands of grinder customers over nearly 30 years, I've got some tips to save you some frustration. These are especially important if you have a new grinder and are just getting into home espresso. In our experience, many new espresso grinders come out of the box set up to a fairly fine grind size. A common problem is doing a first grinding at that very fine setting and ending up with a clog in the grinder. So before grinding, we recommend setting to a significantly coarser setting, then load your beans, start the grinder, and whilst grinding, work your way down to that powdery grind size that's, maybe a little finer than table salt. Notice how the grinder was running while adjusting finer there, and that's another tip. Unless you're using a single dose grinder or have no beans loaded, your grinder should always be actively grinding when adjusting to a finer setting. If not, you risk crushing beans between the burrs, and that can cause the grinder not to start. Now, if you ever start the grinder and it doesn't grind, you want to cut that power immediately, adjust the grind size significantly coarser so the partially ground beans aren't crushed, and try again. Now, when you make grind size adjustments, you should purge the grinder a little bit. Just run off a few grams and discard that. With that, you'll get a fresh dose and guarantee all the coffee at the new setting is of the same grind size. Now, on the majority of grinders, the numbers or markings on the adjustment dial are just for reference. If there's a 0, it's very unlikely that's going to represent the burr touch or the grinder finest setting. There are a few recent grinders like the Varia VS4 single doser that I have here, where 0 does mean something, but that is rather rare. And you need to know, in the majority of cases, a particular setting on one grinder has absolutely no relationship to the same number on another grinder. And that's mostly the case even if it's the same make and model. I've done over 1,000 videos and our support team has talked to tens of thousands of customers. And one of the most common questions we get is, what grind setting should I use? Now, here's the bottom line. It's impossible to give a right answer. We could be using the same coffee, grinder, and machine, and our settings, they're gonna be different. Those numbers and markings, again, those are just for reference. Our brewing variables like coffee type, dose, weight, filter basket, pressure, taste preferences, and more are going to be different. Even if all your variables are constant as your coffee ages from roast, you're going to need to make some adjustments. As I like to say, grind size is not set and forget. The right tools, they're going to help you with uniformity. If you haven't figured it out by now, a scale, it's a must-have. Now, I recommend one design for espresso brewing. Popular names include Akai, Brewista, and Varia, and there's more. Now, I've used all of them, and the versatile Varia Accu Pro is my current go-to. Price-wise, it's a solid middle-of-the-road option, heat-resistant with metal case, IPX6 water-resistant, rechargeable, 1/100th of a gram precision, automatic tearing and timing. It has the space to tear a portafilter, plus has functions like real-time brew ratio calculations for espresso and pour over, so it's multi-purpose and connects via Bluetooth to specialty brewing apps. Tampers come in many styles, and if you have one, great, it should work, but if it's a plastic one that looks something like this or has sloppy fit, it's going to be lacking in the uniformity department. There are designs that make uniformity easier. You've got push-style tampers, all-in-ones with adjustable depth like my old friend, the Jack Leveler here, and higher-end two-piece setups like this Bravo set with a drop-down leveler and calibrated push tamper. In general, as you go up in price with these, you're going to increase consistency and get a cleaner, more even puck surface for the brew water. Many people, myself included, use a WDT tool. That's for Weiss distribution technique. You're going to use the fine needles to stir the grounds before tamping for a more uniform coffee bed and a flatter surface to tamp. If your grinder produces clumps, and that's common on entry-level models, WDT makes a huge difference. If you tamp a clumpy grind, uniformity of resistance in the coffee buck is going to be compromised, leading to bitter and maybe drying shots due to channeling. Other optional tools include dosing funnels and dosing cups. A dosing funnel helps keep all the coffee in the portafilter and keeps things cleaner. It's especially helpful for containing grinds when you're using WDT. If you get one, do make sure it's compatible with your grinder and the filter basket. Dosing cups can make it easier to weigh your coffee if you have a smaller scale, and most are designed for a flip transfer into a portafilter. If you use one, make sure the size matches your portafilter. 58 millimeters is the most common standard, with 54 being the next most common. Now, before we touch a grinder or pull a shot, here's the mindset shift that matters most. Espresso isn't a recipe problem, it's a system balancing problem. Every shot you pull is a result of 5 interacting variables. When something tastes off, one or more of those is out of balance. Dialing in, it's not about chasing the numbers, it's about diagnosing the system. Today I'm going to focus on the first and most important pillar, resistance. And again, we're going to use that diagnostic window of a 1-to-2 ratio extraction and 20 to 30 second timing to help us zero in. So step 1, set your energy. Before dialing resistance, your machine needs to be fully warmed up and stable. Now, I'm using the ECM Synchronica 2. It's a PID machine, so I've set my brew temperature to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's a great solid starting point for a medium roast coffee like the Crema Wave I'm using. Now, if I were using a darker roast, I'd go a couple of degrees cooler. For a lighter roast, a couple of degrees warmer. The goal here, it's not precision, it's matching energy to the roast, so temperature doesn't muddy the results while we dial in grind size. If your machine doesn't have a PID, you're gonna wanna follow the manufacturer's recommended procedure, or you can check our YouTube channel. Chances are we've covered your machine already, and I'll link to my temperature control walkthrough for the Gaja Classic Pro E24 in the description. While your machine heats up or sits idle, you always want to keep the portafilter locked into the group so it warms up and stays thermally stable. If your machine has pre-infusion, you're going to want to leave that off for now. We'll talk about beans and pre-infusion in relation to CO2 management later, but first we need a stable baseline. Step 2, establish a starting point for resistance with grind size. Resistance is how much the puck slows the water, and grind size is the most powerful control lever in espresso. To find a starting grind size, run your grinder with beans loaded and adjust it until the grounds look and feel slightly finer than table salt. Yes, touch and feel your coffee. You know, if you pinch the grounds and they lightly clump together, maybe even showing a hint of your fingerprints in there, you're in the right neighborhood. Now, this isn't about being perfect at this point, it's about being close enough to start diagnosing. Step 3, lock in your dose weight so resistance changes come from grind and not guesswork. I'm using 17 grams, which is typical for many stock 58 millimeter double baskets, so I'm going to be stopping my extraction to end at 34 grams for the 1-to-2 ratio. At this point, you know, dose weight doesn't really matter so long as it's consistent and matches a basket's capacity. 16 to 18 grams is common. If you're not sure what your filter basket capacity is, slightly overfill it, wipe it level with a rim, and weigh it to get yours. And from there, you're going to want to use a dose that's 1 gram less than your basket's capacity. That's going to give you latitude, you know, a little headroom to increase the dose later to change flavor qualities. Remove the portafilter. It must be clean, and always wipe it dry before loading coffee. That's very important. Always dry your portafilter. Tear your portafilter or dosing cup and grind your dose. Once you start grinding, you're going to want to brew as soon as possible. Ground coffee loses aromatics quickly, which is going to degrade flavor. Beyond that, resistance can change. If you leave some ground coffee in a warm portafilter for a while, the water's going to flow more quickly through it. Now, if you're grinding into a portafilter, slightly overfill a basket and weigh it. If your dose is low, grind a bit more. If it's high, swipe some away and recheck it. From this point forward, your dose stays fixed. If the shot is outside the 20 to 30 second window, we're going to change the grind size and not the dose weight. Step 4, you're going to want to ensure uniformity. Prep the puck the same way every time. Use a WD-T tool maybe, especially if grounds are clumpy, then tamp firm and level. And I want you to forget the old 30 pounds of pressure rule if you've heard that one. You just need consistent, even tamps until the coffee stops compressing. Then check the puck surface. It should be smooth and level. If it's uneven, you're going to want to fix that now. Channeling causes more flavor problems than grind size alone, and adjusting grind won't fix a bad puck. Step 5, you pull the shot, and remember, time is a diagnostic, not the goal. Flush the group if your machine requires it, then lock in the portafilter, place your cup and scale, and tare it. Time the shot from pump on. Assuming your grind is not too fine, you'll see drips and the flow will increase. Keep an eye on the scale as the shot progresses. You'll need to stop the shot a couple grams before your 1:2 ratio target yield to account for drip off. When the shot is complete, note the timing. Now, assuming the shot didn't choke with no drips, taste it, even if it's outside the diagnostic window. This is very important. Flavor tells you more than numbers, so develop your palate by always tasting everything. If the flavor leans sour, the shot came too fast because resistance was too low. If flavor leans bitter, the shot came too slow because resistance was too high. Step 6, if your shot was outside the window, it's time to triangulate that resistance. This is the dial-in process. Now, it's unlikely your first shot lands perfectly, and that's normal. If it gushes and finishes under 20 seconds, you're going to grind finer. If it chokes or goes longer than 30, you're going to grind coarser. But do make small grind size changes. Now, how small, it's going to depend on your grinder. Some respond dramatically to tiny adjustments, others are more forgiving. But do note your starting point on the grind size dial and how far you move so you'll learn how your grinder behaves. For example, if shot 1 finished in 15 seconds and you adjusted 2 markings finer, and the second shot finished in 35 seconds, you got a 20-second difference. And the simple math of 20 divided by 2 tells you each marking changed shot time by roughly 10 seconds. So moving 1 marking coarser should land you closer to the middle. Now, it's not always perfectly linear like that, but this method teaches you how your grinder responds and gets you into the diagnostic window. On hopper-fed grinders, you're going to want to purge a few grams after a size change so the entire dose reflects the new grind setting. Pull the next shot using the same dose, same prep, same process, and compare. Then continue modifying grind size as needed to get into that diagnostic window. So, to recap, first, set your energy so temperature isn't confusing the result. Then, change resistance using grind size, keeping dose weight fixed. Ensure uniformity before touching your grind again. Use the 20 to 30 second time and the 1:2 brew ratio as diagnostics, not targets. Taste every shot and adjust based on what you're actually experiencing. We'll get more into that in a minute. If it takes you 3 to 6 shots the first time, that's perfectly normal. But once you understand how your grinder responds, most dial-ins are going to take you maybe 1 to 3 shots. Again, the real goal is not perfect numbers, but understanding the system. So you got that basic dial-in of your grind size, you're in the window. Now, to make simple flavor changes with intent, we're going to appraise 2 qualities: the flavor of the coffee and the tactile sensation, the mouthfeel. You have 2 controls there, the dose weight and grind size. The simplest change is adjusting dose weight. If sweetness is lacking, but the mouthfeel is good, increasing the dose increases sweetness. If the coffee is ashy and heavy, you're going to want to decrease the dose weight. The nice thing about adjusting the dose is you don't waste any coffee because, unlike changing grind size, dose changes don't require purging a few grams to clear the grinder. So if everything is good and you want more sweetness, try updosing a gram. If it ends up ashy and heavy, decrease the dose. Grind size changes, they are a little more complex as they're going to change both flavor and the tactile sensation. It's where to start if flavors are overly bitter or sour or the mouthfeel is off. If too bitter, you're going to want to coarsen the grind a little and use the same dose weight. If it's sour, you should grind a little finer. Now, the complexity comes in there as changing grind size is also probably going to change the mouthfeel a bit. So if you feel a shot is sour and you grind finer, your cup could end up a little grainy. Or if bitter and you go coarser, your cup could end up a little watery. Now, do keep in mind you can only do so much. At some point, you're going to reach the limit of a coffee you're using. Also know it's not unusual to mistake acidity as a sour flavor. A complex acidity that goes to a describable fruit flavor, that is a very desirable characteristic of some coffees. Pre-infusion is maybe one of the most misunderstood tools in espresso because it's often treated like a timing trick. In reality, pre-infusion doesn't exist to extend extraction. It exists to manage water flow and your beans before full pressure ever begins. Within our framework, pre-infusion primarily affects two pillars: uniformity, how evenly the water moves through the puck, and the bean, which is about managing CO2 and how it behaves. Short pre-infusions, they improve uniformity. They usually run for just a couple seconds of water contact, followed by a brief pause. This is most effective for dark roasts and coffees that tend to channel easily. The goal here isn't extraction, it's puck conditioning. By gently wetting the surface of the coffee with little to no pressure, the puck swells a bit before full pressure hits. That makes brew water more likely to flow uniformly through the coffee bed instead of forcing its way through weak spots. Think of it as reducing the risk of channeling, not changing the flavor profile directly. Because these pre-infusions are so short, they don't meaningfully affect extraction. There's no need to include them in shot timing. Treat them as preparation, not brewing. Full saturation pre-infusions are more powerful and used as gas management, especially with very fresh coffee. Coffees roasted within maybe the last couple of weeks still probably contain a lot of trapped CO2. That gas can disrupt extraction, leading to excessive brightness, sharp acidity, and erratic or maybe unstable flow. In this case, a longer pre-infusion is used to fully saturate the coffee puck, followed by a pause. This allows CO2 to off-gas before full pressure extraction begins. If this sounds familiar, it should. It's conceptually similar to the bloom phase in pour-over brewing. By letting the gas escape first, you reduce carbonic acid in the cup and give brew water more consistent access to the coffee bed. For very fresh coffees, this can dramatically improve balance and clarity. So before you touch grind size, dose, or temperature, you've already made one of the most important espresso decisions, the coffee beans. There's a common misconception that there are such things as espresso beans. To be clear, espresso is a brewing method, not a bean type. That said, coffees labeled espresso are usually roasted and blended with a specific intent to be forgiving, balanced, and easy to extract under pressure. And that matters, especially when you're learning. If you're new to espresso, I'm going to strongly recommend starting with a moderately priced, balanced blend. Why? Because these coffees are designed to build resistance easily, extract evenly, be less sensitive to small grind or temperature changes, basically produce classic espresso flavors without fighting the system. That's going to make it much easier to learn how grind, dose, and prep actually affect flavor without chasing problems caused by the coffee itself. The crema wave I'm using here is a balanced blend and a perfect starting point. It's a 100% Arabica blend, roasted locally and always fresh, with consistently excellent reviews. The blend and roast profile were developed by World Barista Championship judge Danilo Lodi, specifically to perform well as espresso. You'll get approachable, classic flavors, honey and almond notes, and a thick, rich crema that makes dialing in more predictable. In framework terms, these beans build stable resistance and aligns with a classic espresso intent, and that's exactly what you want when you're learning. Now, once you're comfortable balancing the system, you can absolutely explore blends like the beaned up or dive into maybe a single origin coffee. These tend to be less forgiving. They're going to be more sensitive to grind, temperature, and freshness, but They're capable of greater complexity and clarity when dialed in well. They reward careful system tuning, but they'll expose weaknesses in puck prep, CO2 management, and energy matching much, much faster. So if you came into this wondering, what grind setting should I use for espresso? Well, now you have a real answer. There isn't one. So as a simple starting point, match energy to the roast. Set resistance with a grind that looks and feels slightly finer than table salt. Use a consistent dose that fits your basket. Keep uniformity consistent with the same prep every time. Aim for a 1-to-2 brew ratio at about 20 to 30 seconds. That's your diagnostic window, not the goal. From there, make small grind adjustments, purging a few grams after a size change if needed. Taste the shot and adjust with intent. Let the beans tell you what's possible and focus on how the espresso actually tastes. The goal isn't perfect numbers, it's understanding how the system responds so you can consistently make espresso you enjoy. You know, espresso can be as simple or as deep as you want it to be. There are more advanced techniques out there, and we'll be covering those, but if you understand the system, you'll always know why you're changing something, not just what to change. My hope is that what I've covered today gives you a solid foundation and, more importantly, the confidence to trust your taste. Now, if you have questions about machines, grinders, espresso, or anything coffee related, I'm going to ask you to drop those down in the comments, and I'd be more than happy to get you a detailed answer. And if you love coffee and espresso as much as I do, make sure to subscribe. I'm Mark. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you back here soon for more of the best in everything coffee, brought to you by Whole Latte Love.